Hi everyone, Carol Macrae here from Mind Body Magic in Dubbo. So I wanted to talk to you about the power of the mind, and I've got a couple of little stories that might just sort of help you to understand how powerful the mind really can be. Because you see, when we are vibrating on a certain frequency, we can draw things to us. It's the law of attraction. However, we can also transfer our thoughts if we need to. Now, many years ago, before I did hypnotherapy and probably even before I became a Reiki master, which was in 1999. I read a book by Florence Scovel Shinn. Now, Florence Scovel Shinn was a real forerunner in thought and the power of the mind. And she would run metaphysical classes. Now, metaphysical just means more than the physical. And she would teach her students how to use their minds to create and to manifest and to change their lives. And in one of her books, and it might have been The Game of Life and How to Play It, Florence talks about one of her students who had a bushfire going through near their property, and the woman rang Florence and said, "Would you do a treatment for me, because I don't want to leave my property. I'm afraid my house will burn down." And of course, Florence said, "Certainly, I'll do a treatment for you, and this is what I want you to do. I want you to get in a position where you can see the fire from where you are, and I want you just to put out this affirmation and visualize within your mind that the fire parts and goes around your home, and I'll do the same." And so Florence did that, and she just visualized in her mind the flame going around this lady's home and property and everything being fine. So the lady actually climbed onto her roof and she did the same thing. And of course, that's exactly what happened. The flames separated and went around her home. Now, after I read that, I was running some Reiki classes and I had a friend in Geary, Glenn Fernside. And Glenn I talked to him about this mind power, and he said to me that he actually ended up trying it. He said there was a hailstorm coming. And he actually rang me when the hailstorm was coming, and he said, "I've just planted a whole big crop in my veggie garden of all these little seedlings, and now this hailstorm's coming. Do you think you can help me? Could we just put out this, intention that the hail doesn't get my plants?" And he and I both had a bit of a chuckle. I said, "Certainly, let's do it. Let's give it a test run." And we both visualized the hail going everywhere else except on his little garden. Now, after the hailstorm passed, he rang me back and he said, "You'll never believe it." He said there was hail all the way around my garden. Not one hailstone was actually in my garden, and not one plant was damaged. So these were early days. These are 20 years ago or more, because I did my Reiki training in 1998, 1999. And then I started believing in magic. I started seeing miracles happening in front of my eyes. Now, once I'd read that book, it really let me understand the power of the mind and the power of our thoughts. And so I started to really trust my instincts, my gut feeling, and it led me to keeping me safe. Because what I know is if we tune into our intuition is connected to our soul. It's our subconscious mind is connected to our soul, and it has higher knowledge. So one time I was driving to work, and I got to the highway and I put the blinker on, which is something I never do, because normally I go straight down one street and turn at Talbragar Street and drive up to our fitness centre that we had at the time, which is in Mind Body Studio. And I got to the highway and I found myself putting the blinker on, and I questioned that to myself. And I thought, why would I do that? I never go this way, because it's just easier to go straight up and turn left and go straight down to the gym. I think I'm going to test it. I wonder what my subconscious knows more about than I'm aware of. So I went straight ahead. I ignored my gut feeling to turn. I got up to Talbragar Street. I put the blinker on, but I couldn't even go around because the whole road had a roadblock across it. So that just confirmed that knowledge for me, that we know things that we're not even aware of, and to really start to trust my instincts and my gut feeling. And so I had several other times when we went to Valor Fair. 5 years in a row, I won things. And the first time I just said to Kim, it'd be nice if I won that little dinner for two for your mum and dad. I'm going to go over and win it. And he just chuckled and said, "You're right." But I had the gut feeling. So I pulled out this little pin out of this pegboard and we won the dinner for two. The next year I won a push bike for our grandson, and my husband said, "That's not fair. You've got an advantage. I'm not going to let you take it home. Give it back to them and let them raffle it because we can't fit it in the car." And that's what I did. And the next 3 years I did the same thing on different things at the fair. And it was really just trusting in that gut feeling. Just like one time when our son Nick was playing football, we went to Wellington, and as soon as I had this ticket in my hand for this footy Guernsey, I knew it was the winning ticket. And I told my husband, and he just laughed and said, "Yeah, right." And we won. And the very next week, we went to Parks or Forbes, and I got another ticket. I went, "Oh, you'll never guess. Last week I won, and this is a winning ticket too." And of course, that was a winning ticket. And another time when my husband and I had... we had a band for 15 years and we were playing out at Warren at a women's function, and we were having a break, or it might have been before we started playing, and the lady came over and she said, "Oh, Jenny and Carol, you forgot to get your lucky door tickets." And I went, "Oh, that ticket." She said, "Here's yours, Carol." And Jenny was on the other side of the table. Jenny turned around and took it from her, and Jenny took her own. And I went, "Yep, that's the winning ticket. I know that's the ticket." And I didn't say anything, but Jenny turned around and then she gave me her ticket and she kept the other ticket that was supposed to be mine. And I said, "You got the winning ticket." And she said, "How do you know?" I said, "Because I just know. I've got that gut feeling's always right." And of course, she won that. Now, there were times when just trusting the gut has actually saved my life, or potentially. There was one time, and this will be the last story and I'll finish because I'm at work and I'll have a client due here very shortly. And there was one time then I was on my way home I'd taken my daughter to Tangalooma Island to feed dolphins, and we were on our way home. And how are we going for time? Oh, that'll be a story for another tape. I've got your interest now. So I will record the rest of this story. Oh, no, I won't. I'll just very quickly tell you. We got to my son's place in Coogee. He wasn't home, and it was the first night of the Olympics. So it turned out he was actually out with his friends, and he wasn't getting any phone calls because he didn't even have his phone. But I was trying to ring him. Firstly, my phone ran out of credit, so I was standing under a light bulb, writing all the numbers down on my hand so I could put it back, because in those days you had to put numbers back into the phone to get the credit. So I got the credit, then the phone ran out of battery and it just kept cutting out. Now, I'd rung my husband and said, "Can you keep ringing Scott, because my phone's nearly dead." My daughter was going off her head saying, "Oh, I'll kill him, blah, blah, blah." And I just thought to myself, I've got to get her out of here because something big's going to happen for these things to have happened tonight. I know there's a big lesson coming for me, and I need to get my daughter out of here because I can control the situation, but I can't control what comes out of her mouth, and she could get us into trouble. So I got her to ring her boyfriend, who then said he was at work, and if she could get a taxi to him, he would drop her home. And I didn't go because I knew I had to catch a plane the next morning at 6:00, and it would be over the other side of the bridge if I went with my daughter. So she went, and my husband kept ringing, and I'd just get a few words in before my phone had cut out, and I'd just say, "Oh, I'm okay, keep ringing Scott." So I sat in the stairwell and I popped my bags around so they couldn't be seen from the main street. And at least I could hear Scott's phone ringing inside because my husband was trying to see if he was home yet. My daughter was trying to see if he was home yet. And my phone became completely dead. And so I had a book that someone had loaned me, and I went up the stairs and I sat there and I was just reading. But at 3:00 in the morning, I heard footsteps coming in, and then I heard somebody's voice say, "Who the bloody hell owns these suitcases?" Now, I've taught women self-defense among all the other things that I've done in my life. And I just stood up and I thought, I'm not going to be a victim. So I stood up on the stairwell and I just said, "Well, actually, I do. I own them." And he said, "Well, who do you think you are?" And I said, "Well, I'm Scott's mum." And luckily, my son that day had gone and spoken to those people and introduced himself and told them somebody had hit their car. And so they were really grateful. And they said, "Oh, we met him today. He's a good bloke." And I'm thinking, great, that's really good for me. So the next thing this fellow says, oh, you better come in, I'll make you a cup of tea. And I went, no, I'm fine, thanks. I'm reading my book. So he sent his girlfriend out to get me to come in. And when I went in, she made me the biggest cup of tea I've ever seen. And she went back to bed. He closed the door and then he took his jacket off. And I looked at him, I went, oh my God, he's got tattoos all over him, which is no big problem, but he's got the crazy drug eyes. I wonder why I'm here. There must be a reason I'm here. There's always a reason for everything. Maybe I'm meant to be here to help this kid. So within a couple of minutes, we're sitting down and he's told me how his grandfather's raped him, how he's held somebody up at a service station, how his brother's killed somebody. And then he's saying, why am I saying this to you? I've never told another living soul. Even my girlfriend doesn't know. And I said, don't worry, this sort of stuff happens to me all the time. And look, that doesn't have to define you, because that little girl in there, she loves you and she must know who you are. So you've got a good heart. You don't have to let that define you for your whole life. So I'm just thinking, well, this must be why I'm here. Next thing, he's pulled out a bong and he's had some pot, and then he's pulled up a bottle of vodka and sculled half a bottle of vodka, half a bottle of scotch, and said, do you want a drink? Do you want a hit of the bong? And I'm going, no, the cup of tea is great, but thanks for asking. So it kind of started getting really interesting. And then he pulled out this knife and he says, have a look at this knife. I've held up a service station with this knife, and I just took it out of his hand and said, yeah, my husband's got a lovely knife like that. Put it down on the coffee table. And then I'm still thinking there must be a reason I'm here, and there's a reason I'm here. Next thing, this fellow says, I'm going to F you. And I just, knowing through Florence Scovel Shinn's work, if we can see something happening, there's a possibility it happened. If we can't see it happen, it's not possible. And I just said to him, a lovely boy like you wouldn't do a thing like that. I know you wouldn't. And I just said, how did you get on with your mother? Oh, look, I understand you're confused. I've got kids the same age as you. And he said, well, the last time I saw her, she held a knife to my throat. And I thought, oh, that wasn't the right tactic to take. And I just said, look, I understand, but I know you wouldn't do a thing like that. Next thing, he's crying and saying, why would I say a thing like that? That's a terrible thing to say, but why shouldn't I? Because I want to. So he picked up the knife again and he said, have a good look at this knife. And I just, again, took it out of his hand and I put it down so he couldn't reach it. And so next thing, he's put his hand on my leg and I just said, take your hand off my leg now. Look, I know you're a decent person. You wouldn't do a thing like that. And that little girlfriend, she loves you. And again, he started crying again, and just this internal argument going on. And so something really funny happened then, something really miraculous. And my father had been dead for 2 years, but I heard my father's voice come up, and that voice said, here's your lesson, you idiot. You can't help everybody else. Sometimes you have to put yourself first. Get out now. And I just said to the guy, oh, I think I just heard Scott's door. I'm going to go and just check if he's there. And he just went, oh, yeah, rightio. If he's not, they come back. And I went, yeah, no worries, but thanks for the cup of tea. It was a great cup of tea. I'll go and check. I ran out that door. I got the bags and I shoved them around under the stairwell where he couldn't see them. I ran around the back of the building and I crouched down in between two parts of the building. Now, while I was crouched down, I'm thinking, oh, palm straight to the groin, palm straight to the nose, knee to the groin, whatever I'm going to do, because I got a black belt in Taekwondo, and I thought, that's what I'm going to do. Then I thought, oh my God, I don't think that's going to work, because I saw him have half a bottle of scotch, half a bottle of vodka. He had the bong, but he also told me he'd had that much speed, he was going to be up all night. And then I thought, he's not even going to feel anything I do. And then I had the fear, oh, wait a minute, I'm just locked myself in. There's 4 brick walls, there's one exit. Now there, I can see there's a possibility something bad could happen to me. I need to get out of here so I don't have that fear, because that will mean it could happen. So I crept down the side of the building and I got to the front of the building, and I'm kind of up against a brick wall with this book in front of me, and I could smell alcohol, and I knew he was there outside looking for me. So I looked around the corner and he was standing in the gateway just looking up and down the street. And then I thought, well, you know what? If Florence Scovel Shinn in her book can put someone to sleep, I'm going to do the same thing. So I started projecting these thoughts. You are so tired. You're so tired. Why don't you just lie down? Why don't you just sit down? You need to rest. Why don't you just sit down there and just have a rest? like within 1 minute, he sat down and he put his head up against the gate, and he just sat there, and I kept projecting the thoughts, and the next thing his head dropped. So I knew that he was asleep. So I waited a few more minutes, and a car pulled up next door and slammed the door, and he didn't move. So I went and climbed over this wire fence, and I could watch him from behind, hiding behind this Otto garbage bin, which was behind the fence. And then another car came by and made a really big noise, and again he didn't stir. So I climbed back over the fence and went into the building behind him, grabbed my suitcases, came back, put them over the fence, climbed back over, and then a little while later a taxi was coming, and I raced out on the road and hailed the taxi and got a taxi to the airport. And that guy did not move. So that really taught me, these are the lessons that have taught me the power of the mind throughout my life. And, you know, even when I used to teach yoga and Tai Chi for 10 years, I'd always do a meditation at the end. And what I knew then is if I went into a meditative state, I would just channel the meditation. I wouldn't even know what would come out of my mouth. And I'd have people crying at the end and saying, how did you know I needed to hear that? And I didn't know. It was just knowledge from a higher source. And I knew that if I put my brainwave pattern into a meditative hypnotic trance state, other people's brainwaves would also sync to that level. Now I use that same technique with my clients here in my little studio. That's my hypnotherapy chair for my clients. And I know if I've got somebody with anxiety, there's a few techniques I'll use. The first thing I'll do is bore the crap out of their conscious mind and talk just like I've been talking to you now, which means you're probably in a trance state. But the other thing I'll do is I'll drop my brainwave pattern to alpha theta brainwave level and just let the information come out that they need to hear. And this is how we can make change. If we can get our brainwaves down to that state where we are receptive, where we're not judging and being critical of what's good for us, we can let information come in that can actually change our lives. So I've got a client out there right now, and I'm going to finish off here today. But I hope that's given you a little bit of insight into the power that we all have, because if one person can do something, we can all do it. So have a beautiful day, guys. This is Carol Macrae, Mind, Body, Magic in Dubbo. I'm a clinical and 5-path hypnotherapist. I'm a Reiki master and teacher. I've got workshops coming up all the time. I'm a Touch for Health kinesiologist, and I work with essential oils. And really, I just love the power of our mind, our energy, our intention, and the magic that is everywhere. So have a beautiful day. Open your mind, open your heart, and just know that you are everything you've come here to be, and I'm always here to help should you need that. Have a beautiful day, guys. Namaste.